All right. Well, hi, Faith. How are
Hi,
you?
doing good.
Good. So I've known you for a little while now. You've had a few of our MetaFormation workshops. But for
hmm
everyone who doesn't know you, tell us who you are and where you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Faith Vu, and I live in Redding, California. And I'm currently a professional full-time mom slash house cleaner and all the things that go into that
Right.
profession, unpaid. And also,
Right.
I own a jewelry business, and I'm working towards a life coaching certification. So,
That's amazing. You have a lot of irons in the fire, and
yeah.
yet somehow you manage it, as far as I can tell, pretty gracefully.
Well, MetaFormation's really been helping with that. So,
Oh, good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, maybe tell us a little bit about your story, and maybe even what brought you to MetaFormation.
Yeah. Well, I came over to Reading because of a ministry school here from Hong Kong. And at the
Hmm.
time, I needed a lot of heart work. And so it was almost like a 3 year vacation with the Lord. And through that,
Hmm.
that was the first time I discovered what coaching was because I didn't know that there was a thing called coaching. I knew
Yeah.
about counseling and therapy, and my parents are pastors, so I know that pastoral counseling part of it, but
Right.
never heard of coaching until I was in ministry school. And that's when I discovered how passionate I am about bringing people into this realization that they have the answers within themselves.
Yeah.
And it really helps me because as a pastor's kid, I found my parents give a lot of advice to people. And
Hmm.
as a youth leader, had done a lot of that too. But when I realized that coaching is all about believing that people have the answers within themselves, I started to remove my sense of responsibility over people's lives and gave
That's
that
so good.
responsibility to them,
Yes.
and saw so much more fruit because it was like they knew that they had power over their life, and it
Yes.
wasn't um, yeah, they didn't necessarily need somebody to tell them what to do. They just needed to discover it for themselves. And a coach
Yes.
is a guide to do that. So that was my journey of discovering coaching. And then along the way, I discovered Tony Stoltzfus's website. I think, I'm not even sure how that happened. I think I was just desiring
Hmm.
for more intimacy with the Lord. Had heard his name, and was led to read the book, The Invitation. And then
Hmm.
I started doing the courses with MetaFormation.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think I hope I get this quote right. I think it was by Dale Stoll, but he summed up in a sentence kind of what you were talking about as far as like that people have the answer within themselves. And but then he said anyway, he says coaching is drawing out what God has already placed in you. Well, I
hmm
thought that's really powerful. But
Yeah.
yeah, it seems to go along with what you were saying too.
Yeah.
Um,
And I experienced a lot of great, going back to the discovering coaching part. I personally experienced someone coaching me when I was in ministry school and didn't like
mhm.
just give me advice or counsel me through things. And once I experienced so much breakthrough through that, I wanted to do that for other people. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
amazing. What was it like reading the invitation? Um, yeah,
Um,
what was that like for you?
it was definitely an eye opener. There's this uh, there's this thing that Tony calls the flatlander way of thinking, and I realized that that's how
Hmm.
I live my life a lot of times. It's right or wrong if I like don't follow. I feel like there was this fear of like missing God's best or His will.
Mm,
If I didn't choose correctly, then I would be in the wrong path for years. So yeah, definitely gave me a lot of freedom and opened
right.
up a different way of conversing with God that I didn't have before.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
And so how has MetaFormation impacted you overall?
It has like deepened my relationship with the Lord. I had a relationship with Him,
Mm,
and like I said, I had done ministry school for 3 years. before doing anything with MetaFormation. So I had a really great awakening around my relationship with God prior to MetaFormation, but I think it just gave me a language to know what my heart was needing and how to get God to meet those desires, and a
Mhm.
language to engage with God through questions that I didn't have before, and hear Him immediately, and not need to wait for the next sermon or the next song or the next preacher to speak to me. And it just made His word come alive in a deeper way. And my quiet time with the Lord felt like a conversation with Him.
Mhm.
And when I journal with the Lord, it just felt like it flowed so much freer, because I was asking Him questions that He wanted to answer, and not like questions like, what should I do?
Right.
It
So
was more
good.
like, I feel like this. How do you feel about it? Or how do you feel
Yeah.
about me? And it was just so much easier to hear from Him. Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. So
Mhm.
greater intimacy. I loved what you said. I didn't have to wait for the next sermon, or even, one of the things we talk about is we don't have to have this crazy powerful worship experience to have an encounter with Jesus, to hear his voice. And we can simply ask him a question, which is a huge part of what we do, asking Jesus questions based on the relationship, not kind of the business of life, or whatever.
Mhm.
Not that we can't ask that too, but it's so much more important, and so much more valuable to him, I think, those
Yeah.
questions out of relationship. Um, but yeah, that's all really powerful. And then you mentioned too the desires of the heart, things like love and acceptance and approval, those kinds of things. What kind of a difference did that make? Um, you know, I know you mentioned the invitation was kind of an eye opener, when you kind of realized, oh, my heart has desires, and this is what those are, and how to have those met by Jesus. How did that impact you?
It definitely shortened the amount of time it took for me to unpack what I was feeling and how to
Hmm.
overcome whatever it was I was feeling or I'm feeling. If it's like anxiety or worry about something, or discomfort, embarrassment, shame, whatever it is, like
Mm,
rather than it being a journey of my head trying to overcome the lie, which is great. That's
good.
what I
Yeah.
used to do. And it's valuable and has its place. I was able to invite God into what my heart was desiring in those moments and get that filled. And at the same time, shift the belief that was holding me back from receiving
Right.
um, the desire from my heart. So yeah, I think it was just like it I think I used the word deepen. So it just deepened and expedited the process of healing or overcoming whatever situation I'm in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a great segue to the next thing I wanted to ask you,
Um,
which is how has this impacted? Well, so I mean, you mentioned a few things. You're a mom. You're a mom of a young boy, um, and you're running a business, and
mhm.
you're doing all the other things that comes with both of those. But how has metaformation impacted your the way you parent, the way you lead your business, and go about your business, that kind of
Yeah.
thing?
I think the main thing for me, and this, like, there are two things that I feel like I've discovered through asking the Lord about the desires of my heart. Two things that stand out is I'm in this journey of discovering how worthy I am of love, and
Yeah.
just that I'm enough no matter what I do. And then also that I get to live a life full of joy no matter
Hmm.
what circumstances I'm in. And I'm still on that journey of getting that truth from my head to like really living it out on a
Hmm.
day-to-day basis. I get to remind myself on sometimes a daily basis to
Yep.
choose joy, especially when my son's throwing a tantrum. Um,
Hmm.
and that I have that already in him. I think those two are big desires of my heart, and I get to invite him into filling that like on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
out of that, I get to create my jewelry from a wholehearted place. I get to show up as a mom and not think like in the beginning of my, I'm a first time mom. So in the beginning of
Yeah.
my first year of motherhood, I had a lot of beliefs around, or like lies that said I needed to do something else or needed to make money for the family to be a contributor to our family, or I
Mhm.
wasn't doing anything important. I mean,
Right.
I know I'm raising a child and that's really important, but at the time, I would be playing with my son and think I should be doing something else, or
Right.
I have a need for significance, and my jewelry business actually helps human trafficking survivors, and I should be doing that and not just sitting here with my son. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of either or. I should be, I can only choose one or the other, or I'm not being
That
or doing
flatlander
enough. Yeah,
perspective you were mentioning before. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of that. And over the past, I think it's 3 years or 2 years since I started the first MetaFormation course and read the book, he's been really uprooting that and seeing my life as a whole 4 dimensional or 6 dimensional thing,
That's
and not
right.
just the 2 dimensional thing, and actually
Right.
see how everything I do is an experience. I get to invite God into that and like become more like him and receive more of his love for me. Um, what else? I feel like I had another thing about business specifically. So I
Mm.
have an example of business and how it applies. So for example, I had a pop-up recently, and I was thinking I don't have enough time as a full-time mom to create the jewelry that I need to sell at this pop-up market in town.
Oh, okay.
And I was feeling anxious about it. And so I asked God, I was like, Jesus, I don't have enough time. I'm believing I don't have enough time
Mm-hmm.
to create this. And so he asked me this question. He said, what if you only created 20 pieces? And I was like, why would I do that? I discovered that it wasn't just the quantity of jewelry that I didn't feel I could create, but it was because I was comparing myself to a vendor next to me that might have a full booth,
Okay.
and
Right.
feel shame around that. And when I drilled it down, I discovered I have this need for recognition. And also, there was a
Yeah.
piece of validation that it's okay to be where I'm at. It's okay that I'm a full time mom and doing part time jewelry right now.
Yes.
God actually wants that for me. And I'm
Yes.
okay where I'm at. And He celebrates where I'm at. And even if I only get to make 20 pieces of jewelry, heaven celebrates that. Even if
Yes.
other people might be like, why the hell is her booth so empty? Like, and so when I created from that place of acceptance of heaven and celebration of heaven, and that my 20 pieces of jewelry is worth it, and
Yes.
from that place, I found myself creating more pieces of jewelry because I didn't have the clutter and the worry and the fear in my heart and my head that was taking up space.
That is amazing.
And he actually gave me back the time. I was creating the jewelry, putting up my boots together. I'm like, how did I have the time to make all this jewelry and still feel joyful and not feel like I was like stressing out about it?
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
definitely transforming me from my head, from my heart to my head to like the external actions and
Yep.
behaviors. Yeah.
Yep. Wow. That's amazing. So through the skills and tools you learned with MetaFormation, you were able to go from a place of it sounds like pressure and stuff like that, and maybe even comparison to
A
just
lot
other
of
booths,
comparison.
a lot of
Mhm.
comparison, and that flatlander thing. So the flatlander thing, for those that don't know, when we think on just two dimensions, it's either right or it's wrong. And our
Mhm.
life is so much more than that, and God wants so much more uh, than that for us. But so anyway, you went from all of that and discovered, oh, there's this desire for joy, for recognition, and he filled that.
Mhm.
And just through you being able to converse with him and him asking you the question, how about just creating 20 pieces?
Mhm.
And that just that one encounter, it sounds like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of shifted all of that.
Yeah, I saw him celebrating me, and like, and I feel like that's what our heart needs, is knowing that, because he's the most important thing. I live to have him feel loved and celebrated by me. And so when
Mm,
I saw him and all of heaven celebrating what I created, it didn't really matter what anyone said at the pop up, because I had this
yeah.
encounter and I felt it. Like it wasn't just something that I saw in my head, but he gave me the picture, but I also felt it in my heart and in
Yeah.
my spirit. And it filled that need for recognition. And it gave me so much joy that when I showed up in the pop up, I actually, I made, I think, I would say like 5, 6 times more than I thought I would.
Wow.
Considering the event was also very it was a unique event. It was at a conference. So the women could only show up at the booth like an hour in the morning and an hour during lunch, and the rest of the time they're inside the event.
Yeah.
Like it's a
Yeah.
conference. So I'm like, I think I'll only sell this much. And I made beyond what I thought I would make. And I was surprised. And I went into it with so much peace and abundance. Like
Mm,
I was like, even if I don't make any sales today, like I got what I needed from
yeah.
God. And I showed up from a whole place, a wholehearted place, rather than, I think in business, sometimes, especially in sales, people can feel manipulation or
Right.
desperation.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't want to feel that way when I hosted my booth. I wanted when women showed up at my booth that they felt that I was contributing to them in some way. And how I did that was I just gave them words of affirmation, recognized who they were in the spirit, and just, gave encouragement. And I think I couldn't have done that if my heart was still in needing validation from them
Yeah.
and recognition from them. And
Yeah.
I got it from the Lord, and I showed up and just, I was generous and paid it off.
That is amazing. I just, that's what wakes me up in the morning. Like, I mean, you went from, like a place where you felt like you maybe needed to pull on them for this desire, this recognition or whatever, to now that's met so fully by the Lord that you're able to freely give to
Yeah,
them. I mean, a total reversal.
yeah,
And not only that, but you made far more than you even dreamed you would.
yeah,
Because I think probably because you went into it filled, like you
yeah,
were filled to overflowing with his joy and his recognition and peace you mentioned.
hmm,
It's a great testimony because I think sometimes, especially business leaders, we wonder how does doing heart work, the inward heart work? How is that like? That's not going to affect my bottom line, right? Like that's our thinking anyway, right? But it has a profound impact on our
yeah,
creativity, the way we are able to show up, and with all of who we are, and even love and minister on people, and at the same time, God blesses us in every way, including financially. It's really amazing. That's
yeah.
just a wonderful testimony, Faith. Thank you for sharing that.
I think as business owners, like the hard work is the main work.
Come on. Yes.
Because I mean, there's a reason for why Jesus uses a lot and talks about money in the Bible more so than any other topic, because
Mhm.
it really brings out heart issues. For me, it's
Yes,
shame,
it does.
comparison, not being enough, not being creative enough, like a lot of not enough mindsets that are holding me back from fully being me in my business, and putting myself out there, marketing myself. Like if I'm in this space of feeling like I'm not enough, I'm not going to create from a place of wholeness.
Yes.
And, at times when I know I'm struggling with consistency of like, putting myself out there on social media, blogging and
Mm.
sending my newsletters, all these things, when I actually engage with God in it, it's because of a heart issue.
Yep.
It's not
So
just an
good.
external time management thing, which is, there is place for that. But every time
Sure.
I engage with the Lord, he always brings it back to my heart.
Yeah. That is so good. Well, last question here. What would you say to another business leader or maybe even another young mom who is thinking about engaging and investing in MetaFormation uh, coaching and training and that kind of thing?
I would say for them and for everyone, basically, like everyone else in the world, um, this work is almost like a requirement for every Christian once they get saved.
Mm, so good.
It really helps us connect with God in the way I feel like He intended it to be. And like our
Hmm.
relationship with God is meant to be intimate and fresh and um real and deep and every day. And I feel like MetaFormation and the courses you offer and the culture you create just helps us go back to our original design and how God really created us to engage with Him. Um, so I would say for everybody, that's what I would say. And for business leaders and for full-time moms that are thinking, is this going to work? Definitely it does. Like I said before, everything goes down to our heart, like boils down to our heart and engaging our heart with the Lord. And when we get that met, like our desires met from the Lord, um, the grind of business and being a mom full time becomes easier. Like the word says, his burden is easy, it's light.
Yeah.
And I feel like this work actually helped me enter into his rest in a greater way. And that's what we want.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
good.
Hmm.
It's in that place of rest, I like you were saying. But that's where we're free to be creative and
Hmm.
um, yeah, and live from our heart. So so wonderful, Faith. That's it's just amazing what God has done in you and through you. It's been a joy to watch and to be a part of. So thanks for doing this for us, and
Of course.
um, yeah, and blessings on your business and family and all those
Thank
other
you.
things.
Thank you. It's been, yeah, life changing for sure.
Good. Thanks, Faith. Let's see.